Now, out of South Africa's total retail sales, online accounts for only 5%, yet e-commerce complaints account for most dissatisfaction. According to the Consumer Ombudsman's Office, South Africa's e-commerce laws are outdated and in need of upgrading to match international standards. Lee Soobrathi, Consumer Goods and Services Ombud, joins us with more detail. Thank you so much for your time. So, consumer legislation outdated. Is this on a holistic level or just in particular looking at the inclusion and accommodation of e-commerce?
Good day to you and the viewers. It's a pleasure to be here. So when we talk about e-commerce, and I'm going to mention this again that was mentioned in our annual report, South Africa has one of the best consumer protection laws in terms of face-to-face as well as online. But what must remember is that as time goes on, it's been 10 years since the Consumer Protection Act as an example. So as with time, e-commerce is not as prevalent. E-commerce is prevalent now that was not so prevalent 10 years ago. Is because with COVID, in the years that have come, how consumers transact has evolved. So yes, while we do need to look at our legislation, I am quite proud in the sense that our consumer protection laws do provide quite substantial protection, but it's how do we now protect consumers in light of the discussions that are happening, what consumers are experiencing, specifically when it comes to purchasing retailers both locally as well as internationally.
Well, talking about retailers internationally, does that now add an extra layer of difficulty considering the fact that a lot of them do not have a presence in South Africa?
And you mentioned it on the point exactly, our presence in South Africa. Remember, as the Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman, we are empowered by statute, we are empowered by law. We are recognized by the Consumer Protection Act, which means that our powers extend within the borders of South Africa, but these goods are landing here. So the question then arises, how do consumers experience those goods in this country? But as an ADR, as a mediation body, so to speak, our powers are only as effective as the parties that are willing to come across the table. So the question begs, how do you get people to resolve a dispute if you can't even get them on the line, by email, by telephone? So we're hoping that by a collaborative effort, we can get the parties around the table so we can start to discuss how do we protect consumers and how do they exercise their protection rights, not only within the borders of South Africa, but for goods that are coming in that they fit, that they try on, that they experience here within our borders.
I'm glad that you also brought the point of collaboration, because I'm interested to know what kind of conversations and with whom are you having these conversations, any partnerships that you're looking at in terms of being able to bring everybody to the table in the effort of protecting the consumer?
I mean, you've seen the media, the reports, the articles, the radio interviews that have been surrounding this issue. I mean, one can't run away from it. And what I can say is that it is positive in the sense that the regulators, the government, the key players in the industry that are affected, local retailers, manufacturers, are all discussing this issue. And as an ombud, we can be nothing but excited to note that once they start to talk about these issues, then the wheel starts to turn. And eventually we'll get to a point whereby we as the Ombud have the power to exercise these rights. Yes, the discussions are happening. Remember, we report to the National Consumer Commission, who is the regulator in terms of the Consumer Protection Act. And we have one voice, we have one vision and one goal, and that is effective dispute resolution for the consumer as well as for suppliers, because they are also protected as part of the supply chain.
I'm also really interested to dig into, the more common complaints that come from consumers regarding the e-commerce landscape, and also maybe where the shortfalls are in the current regulations when it comes to relief of those complaints.
So in terms of e-commerce specifically, we have various pieces of legislation that regulate this. We have the Consumer Protection Act, but we also have the Electronic Communications and Transactions Act of 2002. Now, what this does is that it equips a consumer that when you're transacting online, remember, you're not feeling, you're not touching, you're not seeing what you're buying. So it gives you the right, the ability to expect delivery on time. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing delivery on time, goods being delivered as one of the complaint areas. Other things like defective goods. I mean, in terms of the Consumer Protection Act, if I purchase goods, I have an expectation that those goods are good quality, that they're durable, that they're safe. They have to tick those boxes. And the Act provides a 6-month implied warranty, which means that within 6 months, if those goods become defective, I have a right to take it back to the supplier and to either request a refund, a return, or a repair, depending on the circumstances, but the choice is mine. So the legislation is there. The question then begs is that how do we exercise, how do we practically play this out? And I must say that, I mean, the Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman, we went from 24 participants in 2013, and now we're sitting close to 2,000 participants, which shows that the sentiment is for consumer protection, is because with a happy industry, it means that you have a future relationship between consumers and suppliers, which can then stimulate the economy.
I understand the relief in terms of maybe you can return the stuff or maybe you can you get your money back, but you don't want to be having those issues in the first place, late delivery, defective goods. Are channels open, for the South African authorities to force or maybe encourage improved vendor practices?
So remember, that's exactly who we are. So the Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman, we are empowered in terms of the CGSI code. And the code is law, which means that if you are a supplier of goods or services to a consumer in the ordinary course of business, then you are required. Now, repeat this, you are required by law to belong to the code. And what this means that if everybody participates, everybody shares the burden of this sort of compliance, but it's a burden in a positive sense, which means that if suppliers are educated on what their rights, what their expectations are as a supplier, consumers are equally protected, and everybody is in the same sort of vision or mission, that is to ensure that fairness and fair trade is is everybody's priority, so to speak.
All right. Lee, as we wrap up the conversation, I mean, you're talking about how the the regulation was maybe formed 10 years ago, and that the landscape really is not the same. We also need to look at the actual people that are involved in forming that legislation, regulation, the lawmakers. Are they actually equipped for the changing landscape when it comes to the inclusion of e-commerce?
Listen, and it involves the conversation. Every law that you make, every consumer law or law in any other area, at some point needs to be relooked at. And I mean, our provisions, I mean, in terms of our code, every 5 years, the regulator together with the DTIC, we relook at, is the code working? What's missing? What needs work? And we encourage those current discussions at the moment. And I think so, while the legislation is made at a specific point in time that's relevant at that time, I believe that our legislation specifically makes provision for the every 5-year update, the every 5-year reconsideration to ensure that our protection laws are of a global standard, but number one, that it protects the consumer and it allows the supplier the opportunity to come to the party and account for, or rather take responsibility where things go wrong, because things are going to go wrong. I mean, with the amount of transactions that happen. But I think what's positive is that when we get the parties to talk, and you move towards resolution and that benefits not only the consumer, but the economy and the environment to which you operate.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and for your insights there, Lee. I'm definitely more enlightened as a consumer in terms of what happens behind the scenes of my online transactions. That was Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman Lee Soobrathi.